back to the Eccles Business Buzz podcast. I'm your host, Frances Johnson. Thanks for joining me as we continue to explore the new strategic priorities here at the David Eccles School of Business and the ambitious goals we are working towards. The second pillar of the Eccles School's new strategic plan is societal impact. So we're talking about this question: how do we fulfill our mission as a business school to make an impact on the economy of Utah and beyond? And how do we ensure that we are equipping our students with the skills and purpose they'll need to make their own positive social impacts after they leave us here at the Eccles School? Joining me today to talk about how to prepare students with the right skills and abilities to impact economies and communities is Alan Hall. Alan is the founder, chairman, and CEO of Blue Sky Energy Corporation, a global provider of multiple carbon-based, environmentally friendly, non-fuel products for industry. He is also the founder and former CEO of MarketStar Corporation, a global marketing and sales company with a focus on assisting high-technology companies to increase their sales. In addition, Alan is a co-founder and former managing director of Mercado Partners, a top decile growth equity venture capital fund. Alan is a prolific angel investor with numerous personal investments in Utah area companies, and through the Alan and Jeannie Hall Foundation, he has made very generous investments at the Eccles School and other colleges and universities across the state, with an emphasis on exposing students to sales skills and careers, including providing seed funding to level up the University of Utah's sales program and establish the flagship Sales Innovation Summit here at the David Eccles School of Business. Alan, welcome to the Eccles Business Buzz podcast.
Frances, thank you so much. What a lovely introduction. Thank you very much.
I think that shows us we have a lot to talk about today. So let's dive in. Alan, we just heard you have investments in lots of places, in companies, and in many colleges and universities around the state. You've focused in this area of higher education. As you think about all the places where you could invest your money, let's start by talking about why you see higher ed as a particularly impactful place to make some investments.
Well, thank you very much. That's a great question. And obviously, I'm a beneficiary of the university education. And the lessons that I learned there have been helpful throughout my life. So I look to say there are other things we could add to the curriculum that will enhance a student's education and provide them with greater ability and strength to do wonderful things in their community as an employer, as an employee. So that's been the focus that I've had for the last while, is to invest in students, if you will.
Well, I think you're a great example, Alan, of why we need these bridges between industry and academia. Sometimes what we are delivering is not always what industry needs. There can be a little bit of a mismatch, a timing mismatch there, a little bit, and a skills mismatch. So, coming from your background in industry and across a couple different industries, what do you see as those gaps when you say there are things we can be providing students, a way we can be investing in them to make them more successful? What are students not getting as part of their education that they need to be successful in the workforce right now?
So I served on the Board of Regents over all of our technical colleges and universities for a period of time and got to know very well the faculty and the presidents. And coming from industry, I would say to these employers, what are we missing? Where's the gap? And in two ways, they said the students aren't coming out with critical thinking and social skills. I was surprised by that. So what it tells me is we need to make sure students understand those two fundamental attributes and how they should develop those before they go into the workforce. So at a high level, I could see those are two things that were harming our students as they go out to get that first industry job.
That's so interesting because we often worry about these technical skills. Do students have the technical skills that they need to go in and do a particular kind of job? But this actually isn't the first time that I've heard, nor the first time we've talked about this season, this idea that really what you can get in college that is difficult to get somewhere else is this experience of collaborating, of learning to think critically about problems, of learning to communicate. And I think in the post COVID world and our hyper technology fueled world, that becomes even more difficult, certainly is a challenge for higher ed to be able to deliver that.
So it's important for the students to know these are critical attributes, and they should figure out how they can get that particular education. Sometimes the faculty does not have the curriculum to even teach it, right? But students ought to be very active in trying to say, how do I learn those critical thinking skills? How do I learn to get along with people? And then what that leads to is that employer is going to teach them what they need to do at work, right? So the academic world is not going to teach them everything that an employer will share with that student employee. That changes as we go through work. And you've experienced that yourself, right? You
Yeah,
come with
absolutely.
you come with fundamentals, but now you have to take a deeper dive and understand what am I doing here at work that I didn't know before. Employers will teach you, but they need to make sure you really can think deeply about problems and situations and opportunities, but you got to get along with your peers.
And that's something that an employer doesn't necessarily have the time or the inclination to teach you. That's something that they want you to come ready to go, and those technical skills can follow specific to the job and the role that you have.
So, if I could sort of give you a highlight of the things that I think a student could do, whether you're on campus or not, right? It would be to volunteer as into a nonprofit organization that serves underneeded or underserved people. So let's say boys and girls clubs or anything akin to that, where a student would go in and learn what they need to do to help that student grow and develop that they're working with. Generally, it's a young teenager, but it's really trying to understand what's going on in this young person's head. That's part of critical thinking, right? Is to take and look at them, not look at yourself so much, and try and empathize. That's sort of the gets you on the right path now to be thinking about others and what's going on in their head that you could help them with. That is really an important thing. And any of these nonprofits would take you in a heartbeat as a volunteer, right? Now, at the same time, you're working in a world of the nonprofits where you have to work as a team. You have to cooperate with each other. And so you're learning some skills, if you will, outside of campus. Now you bring that back to class. You bring that back to working with your peers. So for me, that's one of the fundamentals I've learned. Volunteers in the nonprofit world learn these skills by having to live them.
Well, Alan, I'm hoping you can draw for us a connection between these skills, whether we're getting them in the curriculum through volunteer, but these skills of communication, of teamwork, of empathy, which I think is something we don't always think about in a business context, but is truly important to succeeding in a way that makes a positive impact through our work. Let's draw a connection between those and this discipline of sales, because this is something that you're really passionate about personally. It's been part of your really successful career. It's also where you've put a lot of your investment emphasis at the Eccles School and at other colleges and universities in Utah. Your experience has taught you that every job is a sales job, whether we think of it that way or not. Why is sales and these skills, Okay, let me rephrase. How are these skills that we're talking about related to sales? And why is sales such an important thing to understand, regardless of your major, regardless of what industry you land in?
Well, thank you, Francis. Let's start with first principle. We're all in sales no matter what, right? So you have children and you're selling to those children all the time on something you want them to do, correct?
Broccoli. Well, I'm usually trying to sell broccoli. Yeah.
Or think about an accountant. That accountant is working with a customer, and in many cases, they have to work with peers and their bosses. They're always selling. We're always trying to get our ideas across. So, sales is part of human life, and every aspect we're trying to communicate something uh, to, let's say, a buyer of whatever it is. Where that starts is understanding the customer. And all too often, in whatever realm of life we're in, we don't understand their needs very well. So this applies across the board to every one of us in any piece of our life, right? You have a pretty good idea about your kids and their needs. And so trying to understand what's in their head is what makes you would make you a good mom. So, in the professional side of things, the reason I believe that everybody should take a sales class, let's say Sales 101, is to understand you need to know the customer first before you do anything else. That principle helps us throughout our life by understanding our audience really well.
Yes, I think this is true. We don't think of ideas as something that we have to sell all the time, but that is we're always pitching, we're always trying to get our idea, our skill across, and that's sales, even if we're not transacting in a way, like we think of in a store, buying a car, these things that we associate with sales. The sharing of ideas and, um, winning people over to our way of thinking is a type of sales and something that we'll all encounter, and I think that it relies on these skills that we've talked about of communication and understanding people in an empathetic way.
So let's take, for example, the highest ranking person on the campus at the U is President Taylor Randall. He's in sales, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
At the highest level, he's got thousands of employees, tens of thousands of students. He's working with alumni and donors and everybody that has an interest in the U. And he is always thinking about their needs, what's on their mind, so that he can be successful at what he's doing. So on a campus, it starts at that very highest level. If I were to then sort of make a recommendation across that and downwards, it would be that every dean, every faculty member also has the skills to understand what's going on in the minds of their students and helping them to be educated better because that faculty member understands the students better and how they can be educated.
Let's talk about the Sales Innovation Summit because this is a place where you've generously invested and it's an opportunity for students, regardless of their major, even regardless of where they attend college. We had at the Sales Innovation this year 11, I think 11 colleges and universities from around the state represented. It's a chance to get some experiential sales learning, a keynote, breakout sessions about all different aspects of sales and how it relates to all different industries and disciplines and jobs. Gives everyone a little bit of sales acumen, job fair at the end, some practice selling yourself, which is something that we all need to be able to do. Talk about this event specifically. I know you, Alan, are very involved in what it looks like and how it goes. Why was this an important part of your investment at the Eccles School? And what do you think the value is of that event in particular?
Well, thank you, Francis, for the question. I have as a goal, the Hall Foundation is to teach 1 million people the principles of salesmanship. A lot of people, right?
That is a lot of people.
And so I look at wherever we've donated money to any institution of higher learning, we want that president and that dean of business and the faculty to say we need something on the topic of sales, right? So at the University of Utah, this is our starting initiative is having the summit because the summit is a wonderful venue where we bring all these students together. As you pointed out, there's some wonderful speakers and opportunities. But for me, this is just a starting place for the university. As I look ahead, I would like to see that you could actually get a bachelor's degree in professional sales at the University of Utah. Other institutions that have this going are graduating hundreds of students in this field, right? And they come from various industries and careers points. But I like the fact that the University of Utah, starting with this one, it's statewide. So I look at this great institution of the University of Utah as a flagship. They can take these things and run with it. They've got the right people, the resources. So this was a starting sort of an event, which I hope in time will lead to bigger things. That's what this is all about.
We talk at the sales summit about the impact that these sales skills can have on a career. People with sales skills who go into sales jobs earn high salaries. It's also a high percentage of students who go into a sales related job as their first position, even if that isn't their major or their area of focus academically necessarily. So we know that these skills can have a big impact on students and on their success. In your view, Alan, so that's the impact on the student. How do these skills help the student then go into their career and make an impact after they graduate? How is that fuel to this idea of societal impact and positive social change?
Well, it's a great question, and I see a little gap there, right? That's why we're doing what we're doing. So think if I'm now applying for a job somewhere, and I'm going to have an interview. I should have done my homework to understand the culture and the needs, the background of this company. So when I talk to the person who interviews me, I'm talking and understanding very clearly what they would want from me. Students don't get that. They just sort of want to say, here's my resume, let's get at it. And that is a downfall in many ways. They're not going in prepared with the understanding of this employer in the first place. That makes sense to you?
Yeah.
So now, with that said, now I'm going to position myself in front of that hiring manager of who I am, my brand, and what I'm all about. I'm going to line that up with what that company's looking for. So my first sales job is selling them that I fit their culture,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, back to selling ourselves. That's where we have to
Selling
start. Yeah.
ourselves, right? Selling ourselves is we have to meet the need of somebody on the other side of that desk who's looking to hire the right person. And are we positioning ourselves to be that right person? Where do you get that kind of experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost it's this interesting blend of these what we call soft skills. Oh, I don't know that that's necessarily the right term. A previous guest earlier this season referred to them as durable skills. These skills of communication, empathy, collaboration, but that has to be paired with these kind of specific the skills of being able to talk about ourselves, being able to understand what a company needs. If we can't get a job, we can't make the kind of impact that we want. So I totally agree that it has to start there, and then once we get there, then talk about the impact. If students are going into their jobs, graduating and going into their jobs with the right skills and the ability to sell those skills and use those skills, then what is the impact that they can make on communities and economies, even their families?
Well, number one, those who really do this well, of understanding who they are and understanding the employer, they're going to rise to the top as the best employees in that business. That's because they're really thinking this through, understanding the needs of customers in the business and how they fit into that. And they're going to rise to the surface very quickly because they demonstrate those skills, right? So they're going to be a leader in the business sooner than anybody. Back to the community, we would say, now go out and do the same thing in your communities, wherever you are. Make sure you're involved in every aspect that you can of being a contributor to society and use those same skills wherever you're going. And you're going to see that your career really lights up. It gets even better and better because you're really good at everything you do because you understand salesmanship.
Do you have, Alan, in your mind? I don't know if you do or not, but it's the sort, like people say, like, oh, the four C's of communication or the four R's of whatever the case might be. Do you have in your mind a sort of concise idea of this idea of salesmanship? What does it mean if you were to put something like that around it? What are the things, the key things that all of us, students, the rest of us need to understand that kind of encompass this idea of salesmanship?
I think that the number one principle, if you will, of all of this is you have to have a concern for your fellow man, fellow ladies too, right? You need to have a concern for people because no matter what we're selling, a widget or a service, we're really taking care of somebody that has an important and compelling need. And if we don't have that fundamental about loving others, if you will, of having a concern and care for their welfare, we're not going to do very well. We're not going to go very far. If it's always about me, taking care of me, those sorts of personalities don't make it very far. So if you think about it, everything flows off, I'm going to take care of people. And back to everyday life, you take care of your kids, you sacrifice every day for them to make sure they're successful. So think about that attribute you have that carries on in great employees and great citizens because you're concerned about people. That's number one of why people succeed.
I think this is also a great reminder because sometimes sales can have maybe a little bit of a stigma because we associate it with uh, maybe negative experiences, like being pushed to buy something we don't want, or being followed around a store by a kind of pushy, that stereotype of a pushy salesperson, for example. um Cars for some reason always come up, but there are other examples as well. I think that this is a great reminder, if we're doing it right, then it's not about money. It's not even actually about getting a sale. It's about meeting a need. And when we think about the students who are currently enrolled at the Eccles School, our prospective students, this does seem to be a very big concern of this generation of students, is how do I make positive social change and meet really important needs and solve really big sort of societal problems. That is what they care about being able to do. And the sort of money and the title and all of that seems to be moving into sort of a secondary position. I don't know that people would naturally think, oh, the way that I can do that, the way that I can move forward that kind of change and impact that I want to have is through sales. I think that might be kind of a light bulb moment for a lot of people.
Well, in my own life, it has been just that. So the Hall Foundation, I donate, but I also go out and solicit funds for what I'm funding myself. And it's really for me as a donor to be able to say to a prospective donor, I love this of what this entity's doing. Join me, but I'm asking them, why would they want to? What's in their heart? So this is the fundamental.
The fundamental. I love that. Alan, you have talked about what you hope the goal of the foundation to educate 1 million people in the principles of salesmanship, how you hope the Sales Innovation Summit that we have here at the Eccles School is just the beginning of maybe bigger and grander plans related to sales. How do you hope that the Eccles School, in particular, other colleges, universities as well, will deepen their commitment to providing students with these real world skills that they need to succeed?
Well, obviously, I need to understand the needs of the university at the top. What do you really want to do with students, right? And having these capabilities of salesmanship should be integrated across everything we do on campus. So that's a shift, isn't it? That's going to take a little effort over time. But let me give you one example of how, at the smallest level, this could go across every campus. I asked a local university where I've made an investment to go to Guatemala and teach students down there Sales 101. It's now been done for 5 years. They educate about 20 students a year. It's in Spanish, taught by local faculty down there. These students are living in poverty right now. They're taught Sales 101. They get a certificate from the university that that student now has to show a potential employer that I have a sales certificate from this nationally known university. They get these jobs, they go and then they start to work for the company and they make an income where they go from poverty to middle class in 90 days.
Wow.
They're only going to go to a college for 4 years,
Yeah.
but they're going to be able to succeed in life knowing these fundamentals. Now, at the higher level of education where you and I are talking, right? It pertains to a lot of those of us who go to a college to say, I need to learn these things so I'll be even more successful. I'll have even more impact at work and in the community to have some basic salesmanship skills. So universities ought to look at this saying, this is how I earn students so that we can close that gap between social skills, if you will, and their ability to perform at a high level.
As you look into the future, Alan, thinking about your ideal world, if we closed this gap, if students could come out of whatever kind of training, I mean, I think this is a great point, right? Not everyone is going to go earn a 4-year degree. Not everyone needs to or wants to do that. But these skills can be taught and embedded in lots of different types of education and education delivery. So, across all of those sort of modalities, if we could close this gap between what students get and what students need and move those things to be the same, right? What they're getting is what they're needing, the most relevant skills, the right skills for the time. What kind of societal impact do you think that would have, or do you hope to be a part of creating?
Well, in a practical way, think about politics. We live in a world where we need to solve problems, and generally look to the politicians to solve the problems of society. How well trained are those people to even do this? Well, the future is going to be if we have students who now are well educated, they're involved in communities, they're going to be in a better position to cooperate with one another, come up with good solutions through compromise. Our world would be a better place if we have that sort of an approach to problem solving, right? We work together. We solve problems together. But you come with a deep understanding, we're going to take care of people. And that sort of an individual will rise to the top very quickly. So the fundamentals that can be taught in university and then apply that to maybe internships or other things where we really have one-on-one or group experiences would be really helpful. Universities have a wonderful role to train us for the future, not only in our job, but to be good citizens as well.
This people-centered approach, I think, really sounds like the key to what you're hoping students can really learn while they're at at the Eccles School and other places. And I think is also key as we start our series of conversations here on the podcast about this idea of societal impact, that we're really talking about people. We're talking about what they need, what they want, and then talking about how do we solve for that need? How do we meet uh, these challenges with empathy, understanding what they really are, and then creative, collaborative approach to moving towards a solution?
Well, you've summarized it really well. That is the essence of what I'm trying to get done. You've nailed it.
Well, Alan, I think you're off to a great start, and we certainly are so grateful for your investment at the Eccles School and around the state. And we're looking forward to seeing how this grows. Thank you for joining me today to talk a little bit about it.
You're very welcome. This has been most enjoyable.
And thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Eccles Business Buzz podcast. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another great conversation. So make sure you are subscribed to Eccles Business Buzz wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss it. And you can always invite a friend or fellow alum to listen along with you. You can also follow us on Instagram at Eccles Alumni for all the latest news from your Eccles Alumni Network. Until next time. Eccles Business Buzz is a production of the David Eccles School of Business and is produced by University FM.